a very, very, very fine house.
We can get people into fine houses.
Yeah,
We can. We need some sellers, though. We have a shortage of homes on the market. Good
then,
properties
okay, if we
for
do,
sale.
how come we're knocking all these houses down?
Well, those are,
City council one.
yeah, those are, if you want to put $100,000 into renovations and then only get 20 or 30 for the
No,
house.
now you don't have to put 20,000 in
Oh,
those, do you?
No, 100,000. They're tearing down houses that are bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you'd have to go through them to appreciate it.
You could build a new house for what?
Exactly.
For
That's
what?
exactly.
For what?
Well, I don't know. Maybe 150. Nice little house.
A small house?
I would think
150?
so. I would think so.
Okay.
Norfolk has some good new construction ones that are about in the 180s, and they got to be making a profit, I would assume. So,
You would think if they were.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
So, I would think. What do you think, Bill?
I think you gotta have a lot of local builders too, not just Norfolk, but a lot of other builders who are anxious for work. We're starting to see a pickup in new housing, so I'd say contact one of the local builders and get a quote from them.
Pick up one of those lots in the city and build a house.
Laura's husband, Bill, is back, by the way.
And before we get going, I have to thank WKHM, because on my way in here, Big Dog actually grabbed me by the arm, forced me to sit down in a chair, and they have a program going this morning where Kroger's is giving a flu shot, so I got a flu shot for this morning as I was coming in here, involuntarily. I didn't even want it, and they set me
They
down
forced
in a
you
chair.
on
So,
it?
anyway, I really appreciate it. It was great. The other thing I need to do is give a shout out to one of you new listeners, because I saw him at Starbucks this morning.
Oh, wow.
Troy Ganton is listening this morning.
Troy's going to be on next week.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to give a shout out to him.
Is he a new listener? He can't be a new listener.
He is a new listener. He didn't even know that your show was on.
Oh, he's
so
a new listener to our show,
Yes.
but not to the radio
Okay,
station.
and then I told Mike Halaka about it this morning, and Chris Rowley. They were all in Starbucks. We had a board of directors meeting at Starbucks.
Yeah,
this
you know,
morning.
my father used to do that at Jacobson's.
Yeah, well, this is
in the
Starbucks.
restaurant.
And shout out to all the kids that work at Starbucks too. This is a great group of kids that are there. So anyway, that's my shout out for the morning. What are we talking about
Now,
this
that's
I'm not
Starbucks
sure.
where?
Starbucks in Jackson.
there's only one
there's only
Starbucks.
one.
Okay.
And
Well, I don't get out much.
I don't mean to single it
And
out.
do you get north of town?
It's out by the crossing?
It's on the corner of, is it Royal, I think, and
No,
It's right there, just
What is that?
south of the expressway. But yeah, you can't just do Starbucks. I
it's
used
the
to.
street north of Commonwealth.
I also
can tell
go
you
to
that, 'cause
Cafe
it's
Lila.
outside of my ward.
Hold it down.
I don't-
Everybody's talking at once.
Yeah, because I don't want a single Starbucks. That's a great place. But I also go to Cafe Lila in the morning too, which has great
And the Jackson
coffee.
Coffee
And
Company.
the Jackson Coffee Company. So you sort
And
of
those two
spread
are
the
local,
wealth.
where Starbucks is a franchise.
I
But it's
understand.
not even a
I
franchise.
Well,
get
they're
it.
local.
But they're local. They're they're
And
renting
then-
space. And,
They're-
The
they
kids
hire
are local, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
And they're right next to AKA Sushi,
All right, anyway.
which is awesome.
Okay. I
So
know
why
where
do
it's
you have
now.
me on the
Yeah.
show this morning? What am I talking about?
Oh gosh.
Greg, this is serious. She doesn't tell me what we're talking about anymore because she doesn't want so much legalese. Right? So
Well,
She doesn't tell me either.
he doesn't know. No, I won't say anything. I want to remind, and I'll remind people now, and I'll remind at the end of the show that there's a really good housing expo on Saturday from 10 to 2. I think you've got some advertising going for us. Maybe it's on the other station. What's the other station's not WKHM, is it? That's you.
FM. Yeah.
Oh, FM.
WKHM FM.
FM and your
But
AM.
it's never called that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He threw me off when he said that. I call it 105.3.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Also.
Anyhow, there's a housing expo 10 to 2 on Saturday at
Where?
the King Center.
At the King Center.
Yeah, there's some really good classes and exhibitors and prizes and food, and it's all free. I'll remind you at the end of the show.
What is the purpose of that?
That's to introduce people to how to buy a home, or if you have a home, there's winterization programs there. Financing people are there, so you could even refinance, or if you're an investor, come and check out what's going on. It's for everybody that has to do with housing. So it should be crowded.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't have anything to do with housing? Right? You live in a house, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
We all live with a roof over our head, we hope.
Most people.
Most people.
well, except for those people that are living under the overpass on the expressway. but
Right.
Other than that,
Right, and we have a client that we wrote for yesterday who might have to live in a tent for 15 days till we get the house closed. But other than that,
You got a few rentals.
I do. I prefer to have a year lease though.
Okay.
Instead of a 15-day
15-day lease.
Right.
No good.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess what I would like to talk about, Bill, is now a good time to buy. And since you're a lawyer, this will be interesting. Because you don't look at it from that venue.
Yeah, what do I know about whether it's a good time to buy?
Well, if
or
you
not?
were,
From what?
if I said, honey, let's buy a house, what would you say? See, they could watch us.
Wow, he
on-
didn't say much.
I know he didn't. He's
Yeah,
giving me a
that-
look. You'll
that-
have to go to
that-
our website, thinkinrealestate.com, to see the
I
video.
think he's stunned, Bill.
I already have a house, okay?
Uh-huh.
So I don't need another house.
So you would say no.
For me personally, but is it a good time to buy? Let me just tell you, and I mentioned this to Greg before, that I've already seen an uptick in activity in terms of transactions. As you know, and as Greg knows, I do tons of litigation, real estate litigation. For years,
So that's
I
not
did.
good.
I did not, well.
We don't like
it's
to have the uptick
good,
in litigation.
Good for me. No, not at all. But what I started to say is, before the real estate, I don't want to say meltdown, but before the real estate difficulties ensued in 2007, we were doing all kinds of transactions representing developers who were developing subdivisions, selling blocks of lots to builders. I mean, activity was booming. All that went away. We're now starting to see, and this is what I mentioned before the show, is that we're now starting to see some increase in new housing, certainly a greater increase in sale of existing housing. So yeah, the market's coming back. You got historically low rates. You now have an availability of funds that hasn't existed. There's a loosening of the market. So yeah, we're seeing that activity.
It's really, Bill, the perfect storm right now, isn't it?
It should be. Again, when I say loosening of credit requirements, they're nothing like what they used to be back before 2007. But you still, if you have a job, if you have decent credit, you can get a mortgage. You're going to have downstroke. The days of 100% financing are not gone, but it's much more
Yeah, you
difficult
can get rural
these
development,
days.
VA. Those
Yeah,
are
they're
100%
different
financing.
programs. So yeah, and obviously prices are much lower than what they were before
The day
the
of stated
decrease.
income is gone.
Yeah, I understand. You now have
Thank
things.
God.
Yeah, you now have to demonstrate that you in fact have the
Well,
ability
that
to
was
pay
one
the
of the
mortgage.
Problems.
Yeah, that was a central problem in the derivative market.
Pre-2007 circus? would
Yeah,
you
well,
call that?
that was a derivative market that precipitated that, where you found entities that were bundling residential and other mortgages, all kinds of loans, bundling them and selling them as a package to someone else who didn't do due diligence to find out whether or not there was in fact adequate security behind that derivative. It then got packaged again in another package of in another group of derivatives, so it just kept going, and all these fees were taken out. Nobody bothered to check to see whether or not there was underlying collateral to support this soon-to-collapse house of cards. That no longer exists. That house of cards can't be built under today's
So because of
financial
the
market.
collapse of the house of cards, we have low prices right now. However, prices are going up across the board. Nationally, they're going up, and they're going up in Jackson. Our low point, if you look at our statistics, our lowest was 2009. We went up in 2010. We dropped some in 2011, and now we're back up over 2010 right now, currently. So low prices are a good reason to buy. Interest rates, I checked yesterday, 3.6% for a 30-year, 2.875 for a 15-year.
Wow.
Unbelievable. In fact, the client we were writing or countering an offer with last night is buying a nice little house in the Queens area, and I said if he threw $800 at that house, he'd have it paid off in 5 years. It's like buying a car in some cases, but you can live in it.
Well, you can live in your car too, I guess, if you
Right, but-
really have to. But
But it has a kitchen and a bathroom.
What I find interesting, and my wife doesn't know this because, as you know, Greg, I married a much, much younger woman than I. But I lived through the early and mid-1980s. I became licensed in 1972, and that was also a housing recession. But then interest rates for residential mortgages were seeing 15, 16, and 17%. And we still saw sales.
We
What
saw those
baffles
in the
me-
80s.
What that's what I'm saying, in the early
Yeah,
and mid
okay.
80s, and what you see now are these historically low rates, and nevertheless, still we're having to struggle to get this housing market restarted. But Laura's absolutely right. We now have seen an increase, really nationally, in almost every state, not quite every state, but in almost every state, in terms of an increase in pricing of existing homes and an uptick in new housing.
Can you imagine where we'd be if we were 8-10%?
Well, that's where we were in, I think, '07. That's about where the interest rates were.
Yeah,
Well, actually,
you were a little bit lower, 7-8% is what you were doing, but you had variable
in
rate mortgages.
'05, if you didn't have a good credit score, you could get a mortgage, but you were going to pay 9% interest.
And it was going to be variable rate, so that it was
Yeah.
going to go up a year after you signed that.
Are you taking calls?
Sure.
Good morning.
Hey Greg, I heard you're building a house at Health. Is it gonna have an elevator in the garage?
Probably.
So
Moving right along.
low
Somebody
prices-
thinking that maybe you're decrepit, you're too old,
Right.
or you're too infirm.
it would need
to
an
be able to
escalator.
take it up.
If you were building a house, you'd probably build a ranch, and you'd want an escalator to take you across. Not
Nah,
up
he'd
and down.
fall off the escalator.
Anyhow,
I might jump
although
off.
now is a
There's a
good
story the other
time.
day about some guy that fell off the
Yeah.
escalator.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Now's a good time to buy because interest rates are down, but the cost to get that mortgage is going to go up as of November 1st. The FHFA, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, is going to be adding 10 basis points to their loan guarantees.
Why? Because they need the fund.
Because
they need cash.
They need more money.
Yeah.
They get 100% of the profits now on the ones they guarantee, so they'll just put more money in their pocket. And then on November 6th...
Well, maybe to help cover previous losses, not necessarily put more money in the pocket, but to cover previous losses.
But so to get the interest rates probably won't go up. I shouldn't, I don't know for sure, but they probably won't. But the cost of getting a mortgage will go up. And then on November 6th, your APR, how they figure your APR is changing. They're going to include all costs that you're charged up to closing. So in other words, they're going to add title insurance, appraisal, any fee that's done prior to.
Yeah, but APR is
closing.
under truth in lending. That doesn't have anything to do with the cost of the loan. That's simply a different way of stating what the annual percentage rate is amortized over the life of the loan, but that doesn't increase the cost of it.
No, I understand that, but
FYI, APR, FHFA.
cute. So anyhow,
We're living in an acronym
now's a good time,
world.
right?
Greg.
Now's
Aren't we though?
APR is
Really?
what? Actual percentage rate?
Annual percentage rate, and
rate.
that's under the truth in lending, federal truth
Right.
in lending law.
So, anyhow, so the cost of getting a loan's going up November 1, so now's a better time to buy. And then, so the question was, should you buy a house now? But it's not easy to buy a house.
You again know the answer to that question better than I, and I hate to admit that, seriously. But
I am so glad we're
you're doing
recording
marketing.
this, and we have an audience that
But
heard
you're
that.
doing the marketing, you're doing the selling, I do the legal end of it, so I don't really see what's happening itself unless somebody comes to me. And again, I do much more in the way of commercial and non-residential transactions than I do residential transactions, simply because it's too difficult for residential buyers and sellers in many circumstances to afford the cost of a lawyer, so they rely upon the seller's agent, the listing agent, or the buyer's agent. So again, you will know much better than I. If that was a rhetorical question, go ahead and answer it.
Do you remember the question?
Is it a good time to buy or not?
If you have questions, it's 787-3397.
Well, are there a lot houses out there?
Well,
What's
it's
the
a
deal?
buyer's market, except for there's a lot of buyers. So when you're competing, in fact, this house that we were negotiating yesterday, I am surprised that we are not competing against other offers. I'm delighted we're not, but we showed him probably 8 homes, and by the time we were done showing them, 4 of them had offers on them.
So that's a pretty different scenario from just a year ago.
Right. Oh, absolutely, unequivocally. And then the other thing is, when a buyer goes into a home, such as the one we were dealing with yesterday, it's going to need some work. It's habitable, but it's going to need work. So a person in a certain price range may not have the funds to fix up that home. So they can roll them in. There's the 203K loans out there. You can ask Bill George about these. Doesn't he still do his show?
That should be back soon.
Okay, you could make a list. This is what Laura said you should talk about. But the 203K loans, actually, I just found out the other day that if your appraisal comes in above the appraisal price or the purchase price, if you're getting FHA, if it's $5,000 over, you can get $5,000 cash if you're going to put it right back into the house. So I didn't know that before.
Wow.
The other thing that makes them not easier is short sales. There's a lot of short sales, and Jackie just rolled her eyes. I wish I could have got that on camera. Or we're competing with investors who have cash, so cash is always king when it comes to conventional. We just had a listing where the purchase price was $120, the appraisal came in at $104, but the appraiser had data wrong on the appraisal, and they used...
You believe the appraiser had the wrong data?
No, she did have, I saw the appraisal, and
Okay.
data was wrong.
I'm talking like a
Was
lawyer, alleged to have had incorrect data.
That was a bad appraisal then.
Well, but it's up to us as agents to give the lender correct information, and the lender has to give it to the appraiser. We can't.
But also understand, yeah, there are severe limitations on contact between appraisers and listing agents and selling agents these days, because that was part of the problem, at least according to the feds, that what caused the meltdown was this alleged collusion or cooperation between appraisers and agents to pump up the appraisal amount to the amount which was being
Well,
offered for
there
the
certainly
property.
was some
Yeah,
collusion.
there's no
Oh,
doubt.
yeah,
What was
there's no
happening
doubt,
was
yeah.
you had appraisals coming back which simply, I'll say, repeated the sale price, irrespective of what the
Yeah.
underlying market value was. That was considered to be part of the problem. So now you've got severe limitations in terms of the contact, communications, and information that can be transmitted by the realtors to
That's
the
a
appraiser.
good example where a few bad apples kind of spoiled the whole bunch, because most
Well,
appraisers
It's
were
made
good.
appraisers, I teach a lot of appraisers in my seminars, and I commiserate with them about the difficulties that they have keeping up with the marketplace, and particularly the inability to access some of the information that they think is relevant to the deal. It's very difficult for appraisers.
So the moral of the story today is it is a good time to buy. Just know that there's going to be some stumbling blocks along the way.
And
So
some competition.
yeah, so the low price, low interest rates are a plus, despite the challenges you're going to have during that process.
What's the name of the program Saturday?
It's the Housing Expo at the King Center, 10 to 2, and then we do have some price reductions. 3889 Kirkwood, 121.9. 8838 Coon Hill Road is down to $55,000, and 485 Skyline is back on the market at $79,650. Great homes. Come to the expo, 10 to 2 at the King Center on Saturday.
See you next week.
In my appreciation, the Big Dog and Kroger's for the flu shot.
Nice flu shot.